Hello and thanks once again for taking the time to download and listen to the podcast from CelticUnderground.net. As we enter our 11th year, I'm Harry Brady and this is the pre-Barca special. I'm not going to have the usual preamble of chatting about things because I just want to get straight into the meat and bones of the podcast. First up, we have some exclusive chat with Brendan Rodgers, myself and Paul Larkin. Got 15 minutes alone time with Brendan following his press conference to chat about Celtic and the Barcelona game, and we also touch on his vision for the club and the forthcoming cup final against Aberdeen. I hope you'll find it interesting. Then from Brendan we cut across to Jack Lyons and I discussing the formation system set up that Brendan may well employ for the Barcelona game. Following on from that, we have the main meat and bones from today's press conference, if you're listening to it on Tuesday. Yesterday's press conference, I've listened to it on Wednesday, with Scott Brown and Brendan Rodgers and the Scottish and Spanish press in attendance. So this is me, Harry Brady, with him, Paul Larkin, chatting to him, Brendan Rodgers, and then it's me, Harry Brady, chatting to Jack.
How are we doing, lads?
Good. So, is this the best part of your job or the worst part of the job?
The worst part.
Especially when you get questions like that one. Nice one.
Yeah, no, you get some funny ones, but I think every coach and manager, if they had the choice, they would go and work with the players on the field, coach them, make them better, improve them, spend more time with them. But our job, of course, is to probably, and when you have a lot of games, you're maybe doing up to 6 press conferences a week, trying to tell a different story in a different way, provide inspiration and leadership for your team and your supporters. So I respect that, but it's certainly not the most enjoyable.
You sense a kind of negativity in some of the questions. It always seems to be like, the tone seems to be like, why even turning up tomorrow? You know, they've got Messi, they've got Suarez, they've got this. It's almost like they're trying to catch you out and say, well, we've no chance, you know?
That's exactly what they're trying to do. That's exactly. So the key always is, you know, I'm very optimistic, you know, and everything that I'll do, so I'll always, you know, some people may call it deluded, some people call it whatever, but I refer to it probably as more being optimism, and if you don't ever think you have a chance, then you may as well not turn up. But I've never been like that in my life, so we have to always respect the team that we're playing, but can we do something special, and we understand the level they're at. We understand that you've arguably got the best players ever played the game of football in its entirety, and we have to find a way to combat that, and as long as we do our very best, that is all that worries me.
So do you approach a game like Barcelona with trepidation or excitement, or
excitement?
A bit of both?
Yeah, no, I don't see it as a threat. You know, it's very much an opportunity for us. Really, you know, we have an opportunity to right some of the wrongs from the last game that we played, where we didn't really show ourselves in that game. And I think it's one that, yeah, it would be an opportunity for us to go in front of our own supporters and show that, yeah, it'll be a difficult game, but we're going to fight and we're going to give everything to get a result. So no, you always think about the opponent, you think about their strengths and their qualities, and you look to combat that, but then you have to then look to try and impose your style, and that's how I've always worked, and that's what gives my team an aggression in the game and an attacking intent to go and really ask questions of the other team.
I mean, it was really good when he mentioned 1967. You obviously never just gave a normal soundbite that we've had the previous managers mentioning the 5 trophies won. I mean, in this year's particularly, are you in any way impressing that on the players, the anniversary, what it means, especially going into European games like tomorrow?
Not really. I mentioned I used it in my last game. I used it in the Manchester City game. when I talked about the team and the 5 trophies that they won, and not just about what they achieved, but I talked about what it must have taken mentally to achieve that, and all the tough games that they would have had. So I remember going to the Lisbon Lion anniversary view here, which was about an hour and a half long, and was a real inspiration for me. And so I took away from that what Jock Stein and his staff put into that, and I also took what it must have felt for the players and how to win not just 1 trophy but 5, what that takes. You need a bit of luck along the way, of course, but you also need to have a real relentless mentality, and that's what I take from their story that season. They could have settled for 2 trophies, or 3, but it was relentless. It was, can we be the best that we can be? And in that season of over 60 odd games, a unique feeling to have won 5. So it's very much an inspiration. I think you always have to remind players. My job when I came in here was to defend the culture of Celtic. That's one of the visions of me coming into here. Defend the great history and the culture of this club. Yeah. It's in writing. It was something I said to the players on the very first day. So I will do that. I won't drown the players in it, because it's all around them. What we have to do is create more great memories for the supporters, and maybe in 50 years' time they can talk about our players and our team and what an exciting team they were to watch.
That's one of the things I actually took out of, because I was at the back of the room in the screening and you were there, and I thought, all of us have a bit of an ego, and you're sitting there in the concept that you could create a legacy that in 50 years' time people are talking about you and the players. That's the incentive that I'd be taking out of watching that. That's what I was thinking if I was in your shoes.
I think for me the sheer privilege to be here is immense, and of course I feel a personal responsibility because I'm a Celtic man. The last thing I want to do here is to leave and be renowned as a failure. So that fear gives you a driven feeling to be successful, and to know that by your own people and by your own that you've done hopefully a good job. And then what that transpires to be over your time here, there's many things that you need along the way in order to make that happen, especially in modern football. But my ultimate looking at that was of sheer inspiration, and of course I think any manager or person watching that would think, Christ, what a feeling that must have been. But that's how unique it was. It's only ever happened once.
Yeah. You talk about success, first cup final on Sunday. What does it mean to you personally to lead out a Celtic team in a cup final, and how important is it for the progression of the team?
Yeah, I think it's a big moment for us. I felt it's like that Champions League moment in Beersheba, where it can fast track us, to win something together very early on, can create something special for us going forward for the next few years. If we didn't somehow, it would set us back a bit. But I believe that we can continually grow and have a really exciting chapter ahead of us. And it was similar to the Champions League qualification. I felt that this year was always going to be tough coming into a new team, a new squad, new players. Could we arrive in there? It was going to be tough. If we could do it, I think it would give us a great platform, which I think it has done. If we didn't, then okay, we need a lot of work to do, a lot of hard work to do, and then we'd have to then look to it next season. But I feel it's a big opportunity for us as a group very early on in the season. We deserve to win it, but we have, because of how we've been and how we've started. But again, you have to show it another time on the field. So we've got one more game to hold it and run about with it afterwards, but you've got to earn it.
And you personally, leading them out, your family, this must be a huge moment for them, especially when they were all here at the press conference when you first came. This must be monumental.
Aye, it's incredible. And it wouldn't matter, as I said, if there was no one there. For me, that possibility to do that is, it's an eerie feeling. It was like the semi-final game. You know, I've watched that on telly many years. I've watched it, listened to it on the radio. You know, when it wasn't on telly, you know, Celtic people wonder why I was happy after the game. I wasn't celebrating. I've lived that moment, you know, in a Celtic Rangers game for many, many years. You know, a winner with a few minutes to go and being with your own people. You know, I wasn't going to not celebrate.
Exactly.
So no, it was an incredible moment, and now you get a chance to finish it off and make everyone proud, family, supporters, players, everyone, and then continue on what has been a great journey so far.
Is it going to be tough? What time do you think people get to sleep after playing on Wednesday night? Is it going to be tough to have only a day and a half's preparation for a cup final?
Yeah, it is. The day after the game, there's no doubt about it. It is hard to, you know, especially an evening game. You know, you're probably not sleeping until maybe 3 a.m. with the buzz of everything and whatnot. Brings you into Thursday, then get Friday, Saturday. So, but listen, what do we want? Do we want a clear week, or do we want a Champions League night? And you know, for me, keep the games coming, keep the big games coming, and get this stadium full. And when it's not full, can we go and get trophies and be successful? So, but we'll have the energy. There's no doubt about that.
So what's your what's your prep between now and 7:45 tomorrow?
Well, we've done all our sort of tactical preparation. The players now will meet up tomorrow and they'll relax this evening and then we will meet up tomorrow and then finish off our final bits of our preparation. I'll frame the players mentally for the game, and then come kick off, the hyenas get rolled out, the noise becomes unbelievable, and then we're ready to fly again, and hopefully we can fly like the Man City kid.
I mean, one of the things I've noticed you've talked about continuously is removing the fear for the players. And I think that's been evident, you know, from the new camp to Mönchengladbach, the difference in performance and all that. If we have that ability to remove the fear tomorrow, how big a chance do you think we have?
Yeah, huge chance, because listen, there's obviously, they have qualities, huge qualities. Like I say, you know, they barely gave Manchester City a kick. But this is a game that's not just about possession when you play these. This is about dangerous possession. And if you can keep your concentration for the full period of the game and really focus on that, okay, for this game we might have to give up the ball a little bit more than we normally would, but knowing that you're still going to have opportunities, you're still going to be able to affect the result of the game, and you be resilient and you be persistent and you be hard to beat and you keep fighting, you have a major chance, of course. And that's already been shown. You know, we can play to the level that we did here against Manchester City, and it's going to need that level. To play to that level, then we have a chance.
You don't need to tell us what it is. Neil Lennon had a trick up his sleeve. He played a right back at left back to stop Messi cutting in. Have you got any tricks up your sleeve for?
Yes. We've got a bricklayer. No, just do your best. And, you know, normal game, plan as intensely as we can and analyse the games and send them out there as confident as you can.
Okay, final question for me would be, you've talked, you know, everything seems to have become really quick, Champions League and trophies and all that kind of thing, but hearing these stories and that, you seem to be looking a lot more in the longer term now in terms of where we want to be and stuff. I mean, what's been your take on things like the youth academy and the progression that's coming from there, and where do you see that taking us in the next couple of years?
Yeah, I haven't. I think if you look at my vision of the club, so when I came in, I produced a document for all the senior staff, which outlined it was about winning as many titles as we possibly could. Leagues, cups, Europa League, Champions League, that was the ultimate. Win as much, because this is a winning club. Playing attacking football to win, and with the most number of academy players that we possibly can. and the fourth element was about defending the culture and the history of the club. So those 4 elements is what my vision is based around. Short term, it was about getting the team Champions League, getting them focused, getting them playing attacking football, and then it will develop. Getting young players in the team is important. I have good communication with Chris and Tam and Jim and the guys that work there. I think what struck them is the level that the team has gone to. I think they feel that the team now, in terms of where we've been, maybe in terms of now where it's at, it's maybe a different level of player that's required. So hopefully, and that's what I'm trying to create here, create a standard that is based around an elite world-class level. I've been lucky enough to work at that level with that level of players, so I know what it looks like, and the drive is to keep improving that. So Youth Academy, there's a lot of great work goes on there, but we can't never ever be complacent. You know, we really want to see the team have a number of those players in it, or certainly in and around the squad. So that work goes on within that to try and create those players, develop the club, develop the training facility, you know, and really, as I said, shine the torch on what is a brilliant club with as much positivity as we can. And I'm thankful I have the pleasure to lead that process.
Well, I was just going to say, you said loads of titles, could be 6 in a row this year. It's not that far from 10.
No, hey, well, let's take one at a time.
So I'm now joined by Jack Lyons, and we are going to do a full analysis of how the team is going to set up. You've just heard Brendan talking about it, but obviously we needed to get to someone who knew as much about football as Brendan does. But he wasn't available, so we got Jack instead. Boom, boom. So, Jack, how do you see the team setting up tomorrow?
I think what we'll see is a lot more of what we've been used to, as opposed to the kind of significant change that we saw when we went over to the new camp. Obviously, changed to what was basically a 5-4-1, which was something we hadn't really seen. We had a little bit of it when we played in Beersheva. Played the back 5, but it was a complete change. But I think tomorrow we're likely to see a more traditional Brendan Rodgers Celtic lineup.
Do you think he had one go at playing defensively against Barcelona and thought, stuff that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think for a start, it's not Brendan Rodgers' strength. He's never been a coach known as, he's good at, setting up a nice defence, keeping teams out by sitting in deep. It's never been Brendan's strong point. Mm-hmm. He's been known for playing attacking football, pressing teams. He took Swansea up, and that was the first time we'd really seen, he's playing against so-called better opposition, and they were taking those types of teams on and trying to keep possession and pressing those teams. That's what his strength is. So to go from that and then try and coach a deep defensive block and a 5-4-1, and it's just not his thing, and it's not the players' thing either. And not only does it not suit the players, but it's not what they're doing week to week. Yeah. And that's like what they do week to week is what they're going to be best at, because they're best practiced in that.
So we are going to. I thought it's interesting today, and he did this a bit after the Borussia Mönchengladbach game, but he did it a lot today. And obviously the audio we just played and the audio coming up as well, he talks about the Celtic way. And I just find it interesting that he patently believes there is a way that we as a club should play football regardless of our opposition.
Yeah, absolutely. That absolutely comes across in his, like you say, in his press conferences, in any kind of setting where he's speaking about Celtic, he tends to reference that. And he's spoken about how, like you said in the audio we've just heard about, how when he came into the club, that was one of the first things, was this is the way that we are going to play football because we're Celtic and we want to entertain the fans and and he's talking about, with respect to the history of the club, that the best Celtic teams have played that kind of attacking football, and so he wants to continue that on, and that fits into his philosophy as a manager, which he's always been a manager known for playing attacking football.
So let me ask you the technical question: How do you play aggressive front foot football, as he said we're going to play against Barcelona, whilst accepting, as he said, that Barcelona are going to have the majority of the ball?
I think the key thing is it's all about understanding when you can go and put pressure on them and try and press them, try and put them under pressure, and when you need to just sit in and soak up and take a little bit of it a little bit deeper, because you cannot, it's just not physically possible. We saw what happened. We tried to do it against Manchester City, who are a similar but not as good team, was that some players were knackered by half time, and the majority of the team was knackered by an hour. In the last 20 minutes or so, we just looked like we were so out of legs, and that was one of those types of games where we just went for them as much as we could, and it takes its toll at the end of the day, because you just can't play that kind of football all the time. Even the teams that are most renowned for their pressing don't play like that for 90 minutes. So the key thing is getting those moments right where this is when we go and press, and this is when we maybe just sit a little bit deeper and try and make them break us down. And that doesn't necessarily have to be on the edge of your own 18-yard box. It can be, we'll let them play up to the halfway line, but from there we're not going to let them push us any further back even. You've got, it doesn't have to necessarily be that kind of Neil Lennon's team at home to Barcelona when we won, where you're sitting on the edge of your 18-yard box for what feels like the entire game. It doesn't have to be like that. You can be a bit more reserved without necessarily camping on the edge of your own box, which is the kind of thing we see week to week with every team that plays us in the league.
Yeah, although the interesting thing with when I'm looking back on that game, the Lennon game, and I know we played, two defensive lines in the pitch, and I know we gave them majority of possession, and I know they were camped outside our box, but I don't really remember them getting in behind us that often, and I don't really remember thinking, oh, I can't believe they've not scored yet. Apart from you just expected them, apart from the expectation that they would have scored by now. But
I think, yeah, I get what you mean, but I think there is an element of how ridiculously good was Fraser Forster that night. And when you think of that, the other way of looking at that is, well, they had chances, because if he was that good and had to make that many saves, then they must have had...
Yeah.
They must have had plenty of attempts, and there was a couple in particular really good chances that, there was one I remember, and the ball gets cut back to Messi, maybe 15 yards, and he's coming on it, space, and he hits a shot, and Forster just tips it over the bar. Those kind of chances Messi doesn't pass up particularly often, and there wasn't, not to say that what they did that night didn't, deserve a result, but probably on another night it could have easily gone for Barcelona, and it was just that we took our chances and they couldn't, combined with Forster being excellent, but just to make it possible. See, for a team like Celtic to just bring the game close enough that it's actually possible to beat them without it, instead of it being all Barcelona shots. And when you look at how the game in the Nou Camp went, the most recent one, we, with the exception of the penalty, never looked like scoring a goal from open play at any time, and they had chances to have scored more than 7 goals. See if you can just bring it to that position where you get a bit of luck and you get a result. That's the best you can really hope for, because you're never going to outplay Barcelona, create the best chances or create a lot of chances or more than them, or it's just about closing the gap, and then you need obviously your luck, as Brendan said.
Okay, so taking all that consideration, let's go through the team. Let's start. Goalkeeper. Who's the goalkeeper?
I think that's one of the easier ones. Obviously, Gordon's been, since he came back into the team, he's got a great record. He hasn't conceded a goal in the league, I don't think, since he came back into the team, and so he's looking better in terms of his distribution. Still not perfect by any means, but he looks a bit more confident. And I think the key thing is, people, when we talk about that kind of distribution side of the goalkeeping, there's a lot of focus on the actual passing ability, but the kind of overlooked thing, and what I would probably say is the most important thing, is the positioning of when your team's got the ball and how to make yourself a passing option. And every other player on the team can do that because they've been doing that their whole careers. But see, if a goalkeeper's never been trained as to how to do that, then they won't really understand that. So you can see he's now understanding how to make the right angles for when, in any set situation, this is where I need to be to help the possession of the team. So obviously Gordon will start in goals.
Okay, is it a flat back four, or is it a four that tilts into a three?
Well, domestically, it's very much been a four that tilts into a three, but having looked at the European games, it's been a lot more of a traditional looking back four with your two centre halves and then two full backs, which kind of attack sometimes and defend sometimes, but it's been a more equal balance. Whereas you look domestically, particularly before Tierney's injury, it was very, very lopsided. It was always Tierney very high up and always Lustig back. Whereas if you look at like the Mönchengladbach game away or even at home, Izagiri away and Gamboa with the fullbacks, and they played not dissimilar roles. In fact, Gamboa on the right was actually the one that seemed to attack the most, if I remember correctly, out of the two. So more of a traditional back four in Europe, it seems to be.
So, just very quickly before we move into that, I wonder if you could help me. What position was Callum McGregor playing against Kilmarnock? I couldn't quite work out. At times I actually felt he was the position. It was a bit like we were playing with an extra man who nobody knew where he didn't know where to go, because he was neither left back nor left midfield nor left wing. He didn't sit anywhere. It was. I mean,
it was. If you had to put it into position, it was probably something between left back and left wing back. But there was times where he was very high, in the same vein that Tierney can be, but there was times as well that he would drift in towards the middle.
Yeah.
Either, if you want to look at that as either Callum McGregor is gravitating towards his natural position, or Brendan Rodgers is gravitating towards the Pep Guardiola school of inside fullbacks. However you want to look at that. But it was, for all intents and purposes, he was playing a semi-traditional left-back position.
So anyway, off that, it was just, at the game in particular, I just was sitting watching thinking, you're neither one thing nor the other. I'm not quite sure you know where you're playing. Anyway, so it's going to be more of a flat four. So what's that four going to be? Full-backs, I think most people would guess. But you're permanent 3 from 2, and 2 of those 3 were rested against Kilmarnock. So tell me your team.
Yeah, well, like you say, Lustig and we would imagine Izagiri will be quite predictable selections. Sviatchenko, having played basically every game since, I can't remember when the last time Sviatchenko didn't start, but probably getting into the qualifying games. I mean, I would assume Simunovic, based on the fact that Simunovic has played the last couple of games. He's taken up the kind of, it was before it was Simunovic plays at the weekends and Toure plays during the week, and that was Toure was playing League Cup games, midweek league games, Champions League, and Simunovic was taking the rest. But obviously I think Toure had an injury, and Simunovic seems to have just dropped in kind of full time now. So I would probably expect that there would be Simunovic. Having said that, I think Toure was on the bench on Friday.
Yes, he was.
And if he's on the bench, then you would assume he's fit enough to play. And if he's fit enough to play, then why would he not start ahead of Boyata? So if Boyata started, then that would kind of suggest that Touré's being kept for the midweek.
Well, that was the thing. The team on Friday struck me as Izagiri's been back 24 hours, so you're not going to take any risks with him.
Yep.
So we're playing McGregor. We're playing Sviatchenko because he's a bit of maturity at the back who talks to people. And we're playing Lustig because he's our right back. And we are playing Boyata because we are resting Simonovic and Touré.
Yeah, well, I think he said maybe Simonovic had an illness or had a little knock, and he was it was a complete precautionary thing, but they would be fit for Wednesday, but that Touré was fit, and like I said, he was on the bench, so I mean, it patently was fit to play. But the fact that he was on the bench, if Rodgers was thinking, well, I'm going to go with Simonovic on Wednesday, then why wouldn't he have put Touré in instead of Boyata? So maybe it will be Touré, back to the kind of original European partnership of Sviatchenko and Touré.
Well, we've got 20 hours to find out. 20 hours to find out. We can think all and I just wondered whether Simonovic. So if he's got a bit of illness, it's not 100% that he will have cleared up by Wednesday. So you don't want to risk Touré. It could have been as simple as that.
Yeah, it might have been. You might be right.
So then we're on to the middle of the park, and is it going to be 2-3-1? 2-3-1 from that point on. And if it is, who are the two?
I would expect 2-3-1, but away in Mönchengladbach, it was more of a 1-4-1, or it was, rather than two holding players and one in front, it was one holding player and two in front. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that. Brown will obviously start. Armstrong, you would imagine, on form. I could see the case for Beaton, but I think it will be Armstrong. And again, you would assume Rodgers, but I wouldn't be entirely surprised to see McGregor play instead of Rodgers.
Right.
I just think when you look at Rodgers, and he's undeniably talented, but you have that fitness concern, and more importantly, the two Mönchengladbach games he wasn't really involved in at all. He couldn't. In the first game, he wasn't particularly involved at all, and that was a case of we just weren't, when we had possession, we weren't getting it through to his line of play, and that's why kind of Sinclair, Rodgers and Forrest weren't, none of the three were really in the game, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And then he played that kind of 1 with 2 in front, and that role just didn't really suit Rodgers. It's too, he is a number 10. Like, yep. There's no other way of putting it. And especially if he goes for the 1 with the 2 in front, mm-hmm. I think he'll go with McGregor. And I think he might want to just, if we're talking about that he wants to press more, then if you have the 1 and the 2 and you have McGregor and Armstrong, then those two can both kind of press. Whereas if you've got Rodgers and Armstrong and Brown in behind, then Rodgers doesn't do a great job pressing wise, and Armstrong has to kind of hold his position a bit more.
Right.
So, depending on his thinking, I wouldn't be shocked to see McGregor. I'd probably, if I had to bet on it, I would assume he would go with Rodgers, but if he goes in McGregor, I wouldn't be shocked in the slightest.
Okay, and then I assume you go with Sinclair?
Yep. Yeah, the rest of the team, I think, there's no... I wouldn't, it's this kid, Forrest, I think, will go. We're still to see Roberts just find a spot, in truth, and particularly, as again, going back to what we were saying about the pressing, is Forrest, that's the side of the game that's been most impressive from Forrest, is not only his defensive work rate, but not only how energetically he's pressing, but he's doing it in a much more intelligent way now. This season, that's obviously something Rodgers has worked on. So I would imagine Forrest and it's always good to have an option like Roberts on the bench.
Okay, so and I assume it's Dembele up front.
Well, I mean, Chief G's been on form for the development squad, so
has he? I know you're only being facetious, but I couldn't even have told you that.
No, I've got no idea if Chief G's even still at the club, to be honest. But yeah, Dembele, I think that's who the save money's on.
And I thought it was interesting. Funnily enough, I was speaking to a mate before the game and asked how it was going to go, and I said that I thought the massive thing for the Man City game was that we scored first, because the fans went into that game with the expectation of, if we can just not have the embarrassment we had away to Barca, we score first, so that when Man City scored, I very much felt the atmosphere in the ground was okay, so they've equalised, but we expected to be losing at this point, so magic, and the atmosphere didn't alter.
Yes.
The Borussia Mönchengladbach game, we went into that game expecting to win, or many fans did. So when they scored and were playing well, that was killing the atmosphere. And I said, and again, when we beat Barcelona in the 2-1 game under Lennon, obviously scoring first in that game, I think, I was saying, if we could get something early, obviously that's predicated on scoring a goal, but if we can get something early, that would just transform the game. I noticed that was the point that Brendan Rodgers mentioned about getting something early out of the game, talking about how Barcelona had 72% possession at Main Road, not Main Road, whatever their new stadium's called, show my age now, until Man City scored, and goals changed games. And even, I'm sure he's not saying we would have gone on to get a result in the new camp, but he was still making the point of things might have been different if we got that goal.
Yeah, and not just for the fans, but for the players as well.
Yeah.
Because Brendan can talk about being positive, and the players will say the same thing. We get into the game, we're looking for a result, but the players are really going in thinking with probably a little bit of how bad could this potentially be, and whereas getting that goal, and they think maybe we could, like Brendan will have been saying to them, you can get something, but getting that goal, and the players will then all believe, we can get something here. And that drives them on just a little bit more, and like you say, the fans as well, which is obviously a factor. If you can get that, then it's a huge factor to score that first goal.
So that's how we're going to set up. It was interesting in the Man City game that Brendan talked about. Virtually, it was his plan to replace Armstrong for Rogic. It was almost a premeditated substitution that he knew was going to happen 50-60 minutes.
Yeah.
Can you see any of those sort of premeditated substitutions?
No, if Rogic starts, then I can see one of the premeditated substitutions being Rogic needs to come off after 55 minutes. Just because it's Rogic. Obviously I spoke about McGregor, but Beaton, I would imagine. I think Rodgers will have premeditated substitutions based on how the game's going. So, for example, if we're drawing or winning the game, if at the hour mark you'll probably see Beaton, because he can, as a substitute, just kind of settle the game down a bit. He's good at coming on as a substitute and just calming everything down, keeping the ball, things like that. If you want him to go and be part of a team that's going to go and create chances, then you're probably barking up the wrong tree with Beaton. But if you're looking to help keep possession and a little bit more defensive stability, then he would be an option. Obviously, if Rogic needs to come off, the closest thing we've got would either be McGregor or even Roberts, who played at number 10, obviously on Friday night.
Yep.
So I don't think this will happen, but certainly got ideas of, if this is the case, here's what we'll do. There'll be plenty of that. I think Griffiths is injured, is that right?
No, he said that Griffiths trained with the team today.
Oh, really? Well, that's probably a positive, because I remember in the Manchester City game, he seems keen to stick with Dembele for as long as possible, but when if, like I said, we're talking about, pressing him with a bit of, intensity, then it's hard. It's a hard shift, and Dembele's maybe needs a little bit of that. He won't be able to do that for the whole game. So no, I don't think anything specific like that example, but certainly options in that regard. Because, like I say, if we assume Rodgers needs to come off, then if we need a goal, then maybe he brings on Roberts. Or if we need to shore the game up, then he can bring on Beaton and move Armstrong further forward, maybe. He's got those sort of options at hand.
Okay, so that's us. How are Barca going to set up?
They will set up in the Barcelona way, which, as it seems to always have been for the last, since I can remember Barcelona. 4-3-3. It looks like Messi will play, so they will have the arguably best attacking line of all time. Mm-hmm. With Messi coming in off the right and Neymar coming in off the left to support the average Suarez. But obviously Rodgers knows how to deal with Suarez since he made Suarez.
Do you know, it's really interesting at the audio that will be playing just after this, which was the main press conference. He was going on about he thinks Suarez should win the Ballon d'Or. He thinks Suarez is the best footballer in the world, and how wonderful he thinks he is. He patently loves Suarez as a footballer. Yes.
Oh, absolutely. And as I'm sure you'll have heard Brendan Rodgers say, he loves him as a human being as well. But it's absolutely understandable. That front line is there is a strong case to say, and Ronaldo being as great as he is, there is a strong case to say those are the three best footballers in the world right now.
Well, we'll just have to stop them.
Yeah, well, that's it. Just nice and easy. If we recall the game at Celtic Park where I think we lost 1-0, the one where Brown got sent off.
Uh-huh.
And I remember thinking that night, God, Lustig has Neymar just on a leash here. I remember thinking, why has Neymar not managed to do anything? And I was like, Mikael Lustig's got this. So if we can do that, that's 1 out of 3 dealt with.
Exactly.
It's just lucky for Messi that Kieran Tierney's injured. Otherwise, that would have been 2 out of 3 solved.
Yep. Long ball played up to Dembele. Rounds 4. Lashes into the top corner in the 91st minute. Celtic make it 1-0. Or will they be replicating the Borussia Dortmund Legia Warsaw game, which is currently 7-4?
Yeah, I mean, what I think my problem always has been with Dortmund, that they're not very interesting to watch. The games are quite dull, and 7-4 is just another disappointment.
5-2 at half time.
It was 5-2 after 31 minutes.
Yes.
An outrageous start to a game, but yeah.
Well, if we can replicate that the home team has scored 7 goals.
Yeah.
if we score 7 goals tomorrow night and don't win the game, questions will be asked, Brendan.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. But then, wow, if there's even 7 goals in total in the game, I'd be stunned. But that would be quite something.
Yes. Anyway, so that's the team set up. I've only got one more question for you, and that is,
oh dear,
what's the score going to be?
7-4. I'll be dreadfully optimistic and say 3-2 to Celtic.
You'll be wonderfully optimistic and say 3-2 to Celtic.
That's exactly it.
Okay, with that, I will say Jack Lyons, thanks very much.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers.
Scott, first of all, can we just start with how you assess the threat posed by Barcelona?
I think everyone knows how good they are, the qualities. We've just got to try and minimise them to as less chances and as less touches to the ball as we possibly can, and we've got to believe in ourselves. We've got to try and attack them when we can and hopefully create a few chances here.
What did you learn previously that you can take into this game?
We've learned a lot. We were quite open, the ball through the middle of the park, and their third man runner as well. They are top quality players, and we all need to understand that. But we've got to not show as much respect in the middle of the park and make a few challenges and try and dominate the centre of the park and all the way through the spine, and hopefully we can get the ball down and try and play our own game as well, because once we're at home we get the crowd behind us. It's always that taunting atmosphere for anyone.
You did over in Barcelona. How do you stop that creeping into your mind when you're on the park tomorrow night?
I think we've answered that. We've learned from the mistakes that we made, the way we played, and now we're focusing on going forward and trying to create something at Celtic Park that not a lot of teams have done in the past, and make it hard for everyone to come here and get a game. And we've got a good result here at Man City, and nobody thought that was ever possible, so we need to try and do something like that again.
How do you compare this team to the team you played against in 2013 and 2012?
Yeah, they seem to keep getting better and better, and the way they play, it's fantastic. It's great for everyone to watch, but it's all about how we can control our patience when we get on the ball, relax and try and keep the ball as long as we possibly can, because that's their game. That's what we want to try and get up to, and you watch them week in, week out, and the way the gaffer wants us to play as well, it's pretty much based on the Barcelona way. But yeah, again, we know we can play well. We just need to be patient when we get the ball and be brave as well.
As well, Scott, how important will they be? Because Borussia Mönchengladbach seem to thrive on the atmosphere and try to quieten the crowd. So what do you do to try and keep them involved?
Yeah, we didn't play the best at that game. I think we need to start well, create a few chances and get the fans in behind us. They're always great in Champions League nights. They look forward to it. They understand that we're playing Barcelona, that we're not going to have a lot of the ball, but it's all about how we defend and what we do when we get on the ball, and we've got faith in them sticking with us, like we've got faith with us as well.
3, Neymar, Suarez, Messi, and what's it like to play against them?
This one is excellent to watch. Playing against them, it's hard work because you think you've got them. You've seen how managed to work their way out of a tight space, or you switch off for a minute and they're in behind you. It's all about their movement off the ball as well as on the ball. It's fantastic, but I think it's more about how high a line we hold tomorrow and how brave we are, and if we can deal with the pressure and keep out and get the crowd behind us, and it'll be a fantastic game.
What do you mean by that?
Pretty much everything. I think it's bravery on the ball. They're going to press us high up the park like what we plan to do as well, but they're great to watch and great to play against, but we need to try and pretty much do their game to us, and you have to take it in the tight situations when you're under pressure with 2 or 3 players and be able to play 1-2s around them, and it's all about what you do off the ball as well.
How vital is the midfield battle in this game, and how much responsibility do you personally take into the game to make sure that those midfield players don't get on the ball?
Yeah, and I think it's the spine of your team all the way through the middle, and the 2 centre-halves, your midfield and your strikers, and we need to be on the ball all the time, because playing against top quality players you can't give them a minute on the ball, because they can pick passes and play well, and we've got to be able to close them down, and we've got to be brave on the ball as well. We've got to make them a little bit scared of us as well, and especially if the fans get behind us, we get an early shot and corner, and we just push on from them.
A couple of months since the trip over to Barcelona, how do you assess where Celtic are right now compared to back then?
Yeah, we were just starting off in the Champions League under the gaffer, so it was always a hard one to take, but we've learned a lot. We've learned a lot in our league and in the Champions League as well. We've went away from home as well and collected a point too, so we're a little bit disappointed in the last home game, but yeah, again we've got the points against Man City as well, so it shows you we are a force here, and we just need to try and step our game up just that little bit and hopefully get a result.
I was in Beaver training with them yesterday. Celtic have any super fans to give him a run for his money? Fan?
Oh yeah. That's good for him. Didn't even know he was training there, but no, lucky him.
Brendan, can I just start by asking what you think you learned from the game previously that you can take into this game, and how you expect this game to differ from that match?
Well, I think at that time we obviously clearly showed them too much respect on the field, and I think obviously the scoreline was bitterly disappointing at the time. Probably if you go into the last 10 minutes of the game, before the last 10 minutes of the game, and you lose by the margin that we were losing by, then people will say it is what can happen, somewhere like the night camp. But obviously to lose the 2 late goals in the last 10 minutes obviously puts a different slant on the game. So it was very disappointing. There was many aspects of the game that we learned from, in terms of, like I say, showing that courage to get on the ball, having that bravery to play, and having the respect for the opponent, but not necessarily respecting within the game. And I think the players then showed that they had learned from that. So obviously now we went to this stage of playing them again at home. It's a real good measure. It doesn't mean the game's going to be any easier, but certainly our mentality change will differ, because, like I say, the players have shown that from that Barcelona game, when we went into the next game against Manchester City, they showed how they had changed that. So tough game for us, of course. An absolutely top class, world class team with arguably the best front three you could say that has played for Barcelona. So, but I would hope it would be a different performance from ourselves. Well, I think you go into the game certainly having to think really about that defensive organisation. We watched the Manchester City game, we analysed that, and we analysed the game before, and even a lot of the times when you are super organised and that they're a team of quality that can actually play through that pressure and press. So I think it's a number of things. Again, we have to play how we are best playing, which has been really aggressive, being on the front foot, having a tactical plan in order to really be aggressive in the game, but also be mindful that if they beat that press and with the quality, with the sheer quality, then you have to recover very quickly in the game, and then be hard to beat in your half of the field. So, but you play against this quality of team, then of course you also need a little bit of luck as well to be in your side. And then when your opportunities come, you can take the opportunities. So like I say, they get the big talents. They're always about the collective. Barcelona, how they press, how they keep possession of the ball, but then within that they then have some of the world's leading individual players who can make the difference, and we have to fight, and we have to ensure that we do everything we can to try and stop them, but it's not easy.
And the threat they can pose, is it a case of a lot of showing no fear against them?
Yeah, I think, as I said earlier, we understandably, but we showed too much respect on the evening. And you have to respect the other players, but you cannot take that into the game. You have to go in with a clear mind and go on and try and impose your style into the game. So that's the message from ourselves. Like I say, it was a difficult night for us, but at that time I also said it was also about learning for us, and I think clearly we showed from that performance that we had learned from it. So of course this is the next opportunity to show against them as direct opponents, and of course we have the incredible support here behind us, so it should be an unbelievable atmosphere. But they are a team that's played in atmospheres throughout the world, so that they're used to dealing with that pressure. But for us, we have to look to really impose our style and make it as difficult as we possibly can.
Last Barca game against Malaga, Messi didn't play, he was sick. If Messi plays tomorrow, is good news or bad news for you?
Well, I think if you see plus Louis didn't play as well. Yeah, Suarez was out missing, so listen, clearly, if Lionel Messi plays, then of course he's going to be the world's best player. So and I think he has shown that when he doesn't play, they are a different team. I think the game before we played them last time, he didn't play and others didn't play, and they lost the game 1-0. So the game at the weekend, 0-0, without Luis Suarez and Lionel Messi, they are a different team. So I think for supporters, they love to see the best players play. Of course, when you're the manager, you want to face the best players, of course. And for us, no matter who plays, we know that Barcelona will be a very good.
He's saying that at this time of the year they're deciding on the Ballon d'Or. Would you give it to Messi or would you give it to somebody else?
Listen, I think he has won it too many times already. No, it's obviously been between a few players in the last few years, between Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo, and for me it's just about choice, which you prefer. Both are players that have been incredible players in their different ways for their different teams. It's just who you prefer. Do you prefer Lionel Messi? Do you prefer Cristiano Ronaldo? But I also think that Luis Suarez comes into that bracket as well now. I think Luis, since he has joined Barcelona, has made them a better team with his quality, with his goals, and with his spirit. So I would like to think he would be nominated this year, Luis Suarez, because how he was never nominated last season, I do not know. But clearly, Lionel Messi, I think everyone who knows football, whether it's supporter, coach, manager, player, I think everyone recognises what a brilliant player he is, and arguably the best player of all time. But you have a number of players up there in that world-class bracket that I'm sure would love to win the Ballon d'Or.
Okay, Marcelo Becker from Sport Interativo Brazil. Here in Scotland, we have the legend of the monster of Lake Ness. We didn't have those images that we have today, TV images and internet and all these stuffs. What do you think that it would be easier to believe that it exists, the Lake Ness monster or Lionel Messi player?
It's hard to believe that you asked that question. Pregunta muy mal. So, yeah. I don't really know so much about the Loch Ness monster, but I know Lionel Messi's a brilliant player. But that was the worst question I've probably for sure. 1967 was a unique year, not just for Celtic, but I think for football. I think for a group of local players within the small radius of the football club to come together and to win 5 trophies that season. You know, they won everything that year, including the European Cup. And I think it was a really unique season. And I think obviously teams over the years have obviously looked to replicate that, because obviously if you have players that play for your club that are within your club, I always believe they will have that, you know, there's only that 1% extra that they give to the team. But in modern football now, with the money and not only that, the availability, I think the availability of players is much greater now. The world is a smaller world. Teams can get players in from all over the world, and economically sometimes it's more viable to get them in from other countries. So I think what was created back in 1967 here with the Lisbon Lions, and I certainly wouldn't say that would happen again. And if it did, it would be certainly unique once again. For us, it's not just about the one player. It's very much, you play any game of football, whether it's Barcelona or Kilmarnock, who we played on Friday night, it's about the team. So collectively for us all, it's an opportunity to play here. We want to get
a victory in the game. We know it's going to be hugely difficult for us. But for me, we have no fear for the result. And I think that's the important message. We have to impose our style, we have to play our game. And like I said, the Mönchengladbach game, win, lose or draw, we need to perform well. And if we can do that, then we give ourselves an opportunity to get the result. So collectively, that is important for us.
If you had the choice between the two, would you have him over Lionel Messi?
It's a very hard choice. I think in this, I think if we're talking about Ballon d'Or and we're talking about the last year, then I don't think there's been any players better than Luis Suarez. So again, it's not about the choice. I think that in terms of that award, I think he would be very deserving of it in terms of how he's played, what he's given the team, how he's carried the team, and the level that he's played at consistently. So, listen, Lionel Messi's a player that, as I said, I've been married since I first seen him as a young player, as a teenager, and I've seen him play at the level coming into the team at 16, 17, and from that, his last 10 years has been remarkable. His quality and just the things that he does in the game is magical. So I've had the great fortune to work with Louis, and so I know firsthand his qualities. But yeah, there's no choices in it.
When you take into account the result over in Barcelona, the team that you're coming up with themselves, and then also the atmosphere here tomorrow night, how do you define bravery and what you're looking for from your players?
Bravery for me is always the courage to love the football, the ability to want the ball. It's always the measure for me when I ask the team to play. It's not always about smashing into tackles, and it's that courage to play. And this team has really showed that. I just think that out there we made a very bad start in the game, going 1-0 behind. We had the opportunity to equalise. We had threats on counter-attack, and obviously we didn't get the penalty, and then very quickly they get the second goal. And once Barcelona, like they've shown many times against better teams than ourselves, in all honesty, once they're in rhythm and once they get that flow in the game, it's very, very hard to continue. So for us, like I said, lots of learning came from that, lots of development, both in terms of the team mentality and our game came from that performance. And at the time, of course, I said it was very, very disappointing, but it hasn't harmed us. If anything, it's only improved us as a group and as a squad. And for that, the courage that Scott's talking about is that ability to go in and want to get on the ball under pressure. You're going to be pressed. There's going to be waves of pressure coming in, and 1, 2s, 3s, but you have to be able to play through that pressure. And when you analyse, you look at the Manchester City game, I think into the 39th minute, Barcelona were winning 1-0. I think they had 72% of possession. And Manchester City, with the great players that they had 28%. But they get the goal, gets to 1-1, and then the dynamic of the game totally changes. And so that you're playing under pressure from the team. You're under pressure because normally we're a team that have the ball, and you have to respect that maybe this is a game where you don't have as much of the ball. But you certainly will have moments where you have chances, and you have to be able to take them. And that's a holistic look at bravery and courage to take opportunities and to play football.
Just wondering, Brendan, if you can recall where you were Celtic beat Barcelona 2-1 here, and what kind of inspiration can that be to your team tomorrow night?
I can't remember. It was 2012. I was asked the question the other day, but I don't remember where I was, to be honest. I remember somehow being able to see the game and at some stage, and I remember at the time I was really happy for Neil. As a manager coming into it. I remember the game was virtually played in the two boxes. One was defensive box and the other one was, getting the set piece. And obviously the counter-attack goal. But I think what it shows that it can be done. I think that this is an incredible atmosphere here in the stadium, which we've seen over many years and we've experienced here already this season. So we have to use that to our advantage, and the players certainly, they can take inspiration from not only that game, but I think the game that we had here against Manchester City. Manchester City beat Barcelona 3-1 with a much lower percentage of the ball, and we had a great game here against Manchester City, so we showed that we could be equal to them also on an evening. But there's many variables, many factors that go into it. You need a little bit of luck along the way. You need to play at the top of your game. You need your goalkeeper to play well, because you know that you'll have to make saves. And all in all, you hope then that you can take the opportunities that come your way and get the result. And that's certainly what we're going for. And like I say, with no fear of the result. We want to perform well, and if we do, both in our pressing, our recovery of the ball, and being clinical in the final third, then we feel we have a chance. Give him another 24 hours, see where he's at, and then take it from there. Apart from that, most of all the other players available and back in, obviously Emilio and Tom Rodgers back training and working, having had the international trip, and all the other guys that were maybe coming back from injury, Colo Touré and that, have had a few more extra days training, so should all be fine.
Habla de la alineación de mañana, sobre todo Lee Griffiths, y dice que mañana le miraremos a ver cómo está, pero más o menos están todos bien.
So I hope you enjoyed all that chat from Brendan, Broony, and of course myself and Jack Lyons, and Paul Larkin and I interviewing the manager. Enough from me. We've got plenty of Celtic FC Foundation stuff to talk about. I was at a brilliant event last week, and there'll be more about that soon, in addition to more on the Kenny of the Celtic book that was also launched last week with our own Stephen Murray, which you can get online. Anyway, Barcelona game's coming up. Will we? Just will we? Here's hoping. This is me, Harry Bailey, saying good night and God bless.
Can swing. Though nothing will keep us together. You can be